Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today's video, I want to have a conversation. I want to talk about the things that we have to let go of in order to really and truly heal. Before I even get into the things that we have to really let go of, this is going to be a very straightforward type of talk, and a little different than maybe a lot of what my other videos are about. This one might not be as polished. I don't even know how much I'm going to edit this because I just really want this to be like just a raw conversation. But before I even start, I want to take a moment to just even appreciate you clicking on this video. Even clicking on this video, something drew you to it, right? Something drew you to watching this video. And that means that there's a part of you that knows that something is wrong. Maybe a part of you that realizes that you're holding on to some things that maybe aren't serving you on your healing journey that you need to work on letting go of. Maybe you're at the very beginning of your journey and you're just realizing that someone has done something to you that isn't okay. Someone has taken pieces of you that you want to get back. Someone has mistreated or caused some type of trauma in your life. There is so much power in even just realizing and recognizing that those things have happened. The blinders are coming off and you want to step into your healing journey and step into yourself. And that is so powerful. And I just felt the need to take a moment to really, really appreciate that step, because it's a huge step, probably the biggest one that you'll make in your journey. So what are some things that we really have to let go of to heal? I'm going to reflect on the things that I had to let go of myself to heal. And also just through the years of working with people that have been in narcissistic relationships or have come from narcissistic families, whether they knew that they were at the time or they realized that later on, that can kind of be step points to healing. And that I think really deserves some consideration as to how they're maybe holding us back from really being able to fully step into our healing journey. One of the first things I think is really important, and this might sound kind of counterintuitive because I make a lot of educational content on narcissism, but really letting go of the need to fully immerse yourself on a consistent basis in narcissism. You do not need a PhD in narcissism to be able to heal. Now, I want to validate that education definitely has a time and place depending on where you're at in your journey. A lot of times, education can open our eyes, validate our experiences, help us realize that we're not the problem, that we're not the cause of this pain that we're feeling, this dysfunction in our interpersonal relationships. It's not us, it's attributed to something else going on in the other person. Education can be really helpful to break trauma bonds. It can be really helpful to not blame ourselves constantly about how we're feeling, how we're coping, the problems going on in our relationships. And that's a big void that, my YouTube channel looks to fill for people. Also, there's a lot of really good books, but I really think you only really need to read one. I really do. I think that watching some videos on narcissism, understanding what the early signs are, understanding what it feels like to be in a narcissistic relationship, how the narcissistic mind works and functions, I think those are very valuable pieces of information to help aid in the healing journey. However, consuming hours and hours of content on narcissists for years and years isn't really necessary. In fact, it can keep you stuck in your healing process, because if you think about it, continually immersing yourself in that information is still giving a lot of power to the narcissist, right? They're still consuming hours of your life if you think about it. I'm going to link some good books down below that were helpful for me, both personally and professionally, when I started my healing journey. And I think 1 or 2 books is really all a person really needs to read to understand, about narcissism. Watching some YouTube videos on narcissism is okay, can't hurt. But, following 50 pages on Instagram on narcissism and narcissistic relationships, unless they're kind of really aimed at healing, right? There's narcissist content and then there's like healing content. Doing that for many, many years, months, years isn't really necessary. And again, can kind of hold you back from really truly moving forward. What we want to do is we want to put the focus on you, right? Your healing journey. You're not the extension of the narcissist, right? And that might have been how you felt for a long time, for many, many years, for maybe some of you. And we want to break that tie, right? We want to break that extension and have you step into your own power and your own sense of self. Another thing to let go is the thoughts, opinions, feelings of other people, not just the narcissist, but the people that are maybe around the narcissist. So those can be like the flying monkeys, right? The people that are enabling the narcissist. Do people believe I was being abused? Are they believing the things a narcissist is saying about me? Got to let that stuff go. You're not in control of anyone else's thoughts, feelings, behaviors, actions other than your own, right? You control you. You can't control what other people's perceptions are and what they believe and what they don't believe. You don't have to prove your story. You know your story, right? Taking ownership of your story does not require other people to also own your story. And by giving all of this attention to, clear your name, from the smear campaigns, to have your point of view be heard. I understand the need for validation there, right? And at the same time, it's still giving a lot of energy and empowering the narcissist, even indirectly. You know your story. The people that are in your corner, that are truly in your corner, that are good supports for you, are going to believe your story. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to prove anything. They can believe what they want to believe, and that's okay. It's not a requirement for your healing. Another thing to really, really let go is revenge. You gotta let go of any desire in you that feels the need to right the wrongs. And I get how strong that urge can be to try to get back at someone that's hurt you. I understand that. I think it's a normal process. I think those are totally normal and valid feelings, right? If someone hurts you, to want to hurt them back, right? I mean, when you're stuck in that emotion mind because you're dealing with all of these intense feelings, I think that it's totally normal and very valid. However, it's not going to be conducive and helpful for your healing process. Again, living a revenge life, being motivated for revenge, trying to enact revenge against someone that's hurt you, you're directly giving them your power. The whole ultimate goal of healing is to take your power back. You don't want to do anything that is going to give away pieces of your power. You're trying to take those pieces back right now by healing from this. Revenge, being revenge-minded, obsessing over how to get revenge is not doing that for you. So as strong and even as valid as those feelings are, we have to let go of our desire to even the score, to get revenge, to try to make that person feel the way that they made us feel. We don't have to do that in order to feel better. There are other ways to work through our difficult emotions without getting revenge. In fact, sometimes when people do get revenge against someone that wronged them, they feel worse in the long run, believe it or not. Another thing we got to let go is care of what the narcissist is doing. That means caring about their new sources of supply, the person that they're dating now, what they're doing with their job, their career. We got to let that stuff go. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they're doing. We don't need to be checking in on them. We don't need to be looking at their social media. We don't need to be talking to mutual friends about what they've been up to. Again, that's narcissist focused, not healing focused. We have to let that stuff go. You've given years, potentially years of your life to this person, right? We don't need to keep giving it to them, right? You got to give it to yourself. What are you doing? How are you moving forward? How are you coping? What are you doing with your work? That's the part that matters. We have to look at ourselves. We have to look inward to heal, right? Healing isn't going to happen if we're constantly and continually obsessing over what the narcissist is doing. And again, it's valid, and I understand why it's tempting to want to still maintain some illusion of control, right? to be on the end, to know, to understand, to see what they're doing, right? Checking in on them all the time. Again, it's not going to be helpful in the long run. It's going to make it hard to let go of hard feelings like anger and depression, shame, guilt, blame, for constantly checking in on a narcissist. And that leads me to another thing that we really got to work on letting go. And that is our anger. Again, anger, I think, is totally normal after getting out of an abusive relationship or realizing, as a child that your parents are abusive, right? Wherever you're coming from when you're watching this video, your feelings are valid and normal. Anger is the emotion that says that someone did something to us that wasn't right. We were wronged in some way. We were treated unjustly. And that's a valid emotion that can be helpful in a lot of situations. Telling someone to be angry after they've been, or not be angry after they've been abused isn't a possible thing, right? However, we don't want to carry that anger around with us for months and years and years and years, right? There's got to be a point where we let the anger go. And we are consciously making this decision to let the anger go because we know that if we carry this anger around with us, it's like carrying around a nasty stack of potatoes that just continues to mold and to smell and to bleed in and taint all of the areas of our life. Anger, when it's left unchecked and not processed and worked through, turns into resentment. It turns into rage. And then we're taking it out on our kids. We're taking it out on our coworkers. We're taking it out on our friends. We're taking it out on our family, right? Because emotions, they don't dissipate. If we suppress our emotions, they stay inside of us, right? If we don't bring those parts of us out and work through it, it's going to lead into areas that we value in life, and it's not going to be helpful for us. We don't heal that anger. We take it into the next relationship, and then we take it into the next relationship after that. We have to learn how to work through and cope with our anger so it's not following us around forever. And I get how hard it can be to let go of the anger. I still get angry. I still have to deal with the narcissist that was in my life, or still is kind of in my life, because we share a child together, and there are things that he says sometimes that make me very angry, and it's hard to not respond out of anger. It's hard not to let yourself go there. Checking in with yourself after reading something that, notice that anger coming up, notice it rise, and don't be afraid to feel it, but don't react on it, right? Do some mindful breaths, deep breathing, compose yourself, be like, it is not worth it. It is not worth it to act on this anger that I'm experiencing, right? I have to let it go. I have to let go of the things that are causing this anger because it's not going to serve me. We're saying this person isn't worth my energy. Anger is an emotion that consumes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy to stay angry at somebody. It really, really does. And if we're staying angry at the narcissist for years and years and years, like that's them taking our energy, even if they're not aware of it, right? Even if we're no contact and they're not aware of our anger, it's still giving them our energy. And we don't want to do that. They zapped our energy for long enough. Why give them that satisfaction to continue to zap it through years of anger and resentment? It's not worth it. Turning that anger into things like pride, things like courage, right? Taking that anger and channeling it into something that is meaningful, that is valuable to us, creating something is a much more productive use of that energy. Another thing we got to work on letting go are the negative deficiency stories that we tell ourselves. Deficiency stories are something that's really common, especially in kids that have been through complex trauma, but they can happen in adult relationships too. Those are the stories of, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I deserved this, right? In relationships, it can kind of look like, how could I have been so stupid? How did I not notice the red flags? Why did I let myself stay in this for this long? Deficiency stories are especially common right after we leave an abusive relationship, because a lot of times the voice that we hear internally is not our own voice. It's the voice of the abuser. It's the I'm ugly, I'm stupid, I'm worthless voice. We have to work to repair those trauma parts. And a good way to do that, and the full way of doing that is kind of beyond the scope of this video, but a good way to start doing that is being very mindful of these internal narratives that we're telling ourselves. So our inner self-talk, our inner dialogues. We can work to reframe those stories to be not as much based in victimness, but more based in empowerment and survival. A good way to practice doing this, and this is something I encourage all my patients to do, and it was really helpful for me as well, is if you had a friend who went through the same exact situation as you went through, and they trusted you enough to come to you for advice or for support, what would you say to them? What would you say to your friends who went through horrendous abuse, mistreatment by another person, their parents, their family, a partner, and they needed help? What would you say to them? And how does that compare to what you say to yourself, right? What are some shifts that you could work through your internal dialogue to make some shifts in how you speak to yourself? How can you learn how to send yourself compassion and kindness, right, that you would give to a friend? Because most likely if you had a friend that came to you and said, hey, I went through this awful experience of emotional, physical abuse, and you're not going to say to them, like, how could you have been so stupid to stay in that? Why didn't you leave, right? How did you not notice that stuff early on? How could you have been so stupid? You're probably not going to say that to someone, your best friend or someone that you really care about, right? No, you're going to offer them kindness. You're going to offer them compassion. You're going to validate their emotions and their experiences. Those are the things that we have to learn how to do for ourselves. Depending on where you're at in your healing journey, this can be super difficult to do. So I don't want to undersell that part. Giving ourselves compassion is not natural for people that have been through trauma, especially childhood trauma. If you're watching this video because you have narcissistic or emotionally abusive or invalidating parents, you didn't learn those basic skills of compassion, right? Of self-compassion. So it can be really hard to get to this point. So I just want to take a moment to validate that. But just kind of starting to kind of poke holes in that deficiency story can be a step forward in that direction. But also working with, a talented therapist, trauma therapist can also be very, very helpful. When we are children and we go through trauma, it is not safe to blame our caregivers for that trauma. Okay. So I say deficiency stories they can happen in both situations, but very, very common. And childhood trauma, when we grow up, it's not safe to blame our caregivers, right? Our brains aren't going to do that because that's not safe to do as children. So we're going to blame ourselves, right? That's how these deficiency stories come to be. The great thing is that through the healing process, we can learn to rewrite all of those narratives. Another thing we got to let go of is our normal instinct to push away hard, complex, difficult emotions to feel through. So these are emotions like shame, anguish, anger again, depression, guilt, self-blame. Those feelings, we don't like to feel them, right? And that's valid because they're really hard and painful emotions to work through. However, we have to let ourselves feel those feelings. We have to heal the parts, right, that carry those feelings, those inner child parts, those shadow parts, those exiled parts. We have to give them love, attention, allow them to come out, allow them to be heard as part of this healing process. Again, the full scope of how to do this is beyond what I can talk about in this YouTube video. But working with a therapist, that specializes in something like internal family systems or trauma, complex trauma can be a good way to do this. But we have to allow those parts to come out and heal and work through their pain. It's very easy when we have parts that carry shame and carry blame and carry guilt to kind of file those parts away as like, okay, these parts aren't me. These are not me parts. Janina Fisher, who's an amazing clinical psychologist that has written a lot of amazing books on trauma and given a lot of awesome workshops, presentations on trauma, talks about this idea of like not me parts versus life going on as normal parts. The normal life parts, right? The parts that try to make things look okay from an outside perspective while ignoring kind of those not me trauma parts. The normal life parts, things like throwing yourself into your work, into your job, into school, distracting yourself using, many, many different types of means to just kind of keep things going and normally while not addressing those shadow parts. That is kind of what I'm talking to, that the need to let go of trying to avoid processing through some of those difficult feelings and emotions. Again, therapy can be a really helpful resource for working through the not me parts. to working through our inner child parts to really, really cultivate and help with that healing. I'll link her book down below as well, next to the other ones that I recommend for kind of getting a feel for narcissism. Her book is amazing. It was one of the most powerful trauma books that I've ever read. Drawing a blank on the name of it currently right now. I don't have it here at my house. It's in my office. But it is a really, really an awesome book, and I would highly recommend it to anyone that's been through complex trauma. It's a very, very life-changing book. Another thing we got to work on letting go is any belief that anything the narcissist said to us is right. Okay. This one seems kind of basic, but I think it's hard for a lot of people to really kind of let go, again, of that voice, right? That internal voice, and reframing those stories is one way to do that, but really realizing that anything the narcissist has said to us, done to us, is really kind of a reflection of their own self, right? Narcissists project their own feelings, insecurities, things that they don't like about themselves on the people that they're victimizing. And when you've gone through years of chronic gaslighting, grooming, and brainwashing, it's hard to separate yourselves from what the narcissist is saying to you. And if we hold beliefs that what they are saying has some form of truth to it, it's really, really hard to heal. Again, those thoughts, they attach themselves to those not me trauma parts. We start believing those things, right? We start believing that we are stupid, that we are lazy, that we are ugly, that we are worthless, right? It's going to impact us. It's going to impede on us being able to take our power back. One exercise that I had my patients do that I work with that have gone through narcissistic abuse is, when they're hearing those things, either from the narcissist or in their own mind, that they've been separated from the narcissist, try to picture like a mirror, right? Mirror, you on one side, the narcissist on the other side, and everything that they're saying to you is really what they're saying to their own reflection. It sounds kind of silly maybe, but it can be a very powerful visualization exercise to help foster detachment from the things a narcissist is saying to us. And the last thing I'm going to talk about in this video of things that we need to let go is that we need to let go of our timeline on when we think that we're going to be healed. There is no timeline on healing from anything. Okay? Healing is an individualized process that's going to look different for everybody, right? So criticizing ourselves and how long we're taking in our healing journey isn't helpful, right? It's not going to be serving us. It's not going to be helpful for us. Comparing, right? Comparison can kind of be a big thing here. Comparing our journey to maybe someone else's journey that went through a hard time, right? Oh, well, they were healed in exactly, 1 year, 6 months, and 3 days. And I've been, feeling the way that I've been feeling for 4 or 5 years now. It's not a fair comparison. Comparison is a thief of joy. It's one of my favorite quotes. I think there's so much truth to that quote. We do not need to compare our healing journeys to anyone else's journeys, or put any type of time limit on how long it takes us to work through our inner things. Depending on the type of trauma that we've experienced, how long the trauma occurred for, and those are all going to contribute to how long it takes us to heal. If you've gone through child abuse for your whole childhood, right? And, you're trying to work on it as an adult. I mean, you went through that for how many years? It's going to take, probably more than, a year, maybe even 5 years to really fully heal. Healing could be an ongoing, consistent process indefinitely. We don't want to characterize our healing by the absence of pain, the absence of bad days. Those are true. Every person, whether they've gone through trauma, or they've gone through abusive relationships or not, has bad days. They have pain. That's part of being a human being. Feeling happy and joy and those positive emotions every single day of your life isn't realistic for anybody. As long as you continually wake up and focus on you and focus on the work, even if, depending on where you're at, that's just even getting through the day, right? You're moving in the right direction, and there is no need to put any type of limit on your healing process. Okay, I know I said that was the last one, but this actually makes me think of one more thing. Also, it's kind of an idea that to let go of is this idea that we need to rely on other people to help us heal. Now, support is important. kind of more what I'm referring to at this point is like attaching ourselves to another relationship, which is really common after we end a relationship. And I think is especially common after we get out of an abusive relationship. People kind of go one or two ways. The one, they don't want anything to do with any relationships ever again. Like, I'm never doing this again, right? Or they move to attach themselves pretty quickly to somebody else to try to settle down that attachment system activation, that uncomfortable activation. A lot of this is going to depend, on things like attachment style, codependent traits, right? So it's not, and there can be like things in the middle too. It's not all or nothing either, but in general, it's kind of the two directions people tend to go. And on the attachers, right? The people that maybe have more anxious attachment, they want to attach themselves immediately to another relationship and expect that relationship to kind of help themselves heal through the abusive one. That's also going to get in the way of the healing process. It's also going to make it more likely to repeat another abusive relationship, right? When we think about people, and maybe you have been through several toxic relationships, with narcissists or people that, are toxic or bad for you in some type of way. It's because adequate healing didn't take place between those relationships, right? We're drawn to kind of what we know, to what feels familiar to us. And if we don't give ourselves time to heal, or we depend on other people to help us heal, we're not going to heal. We're going to continue to repeat the same patterns over and over again. Healing is something that we can do on our own. We don't have to rely on a relationship to do that for us, right? Having healthy support system, that's one thing that's super good. I think that can make a huge difference for people in their healing journey. However, this idea that I need to have a partner, I need to be with somebody romantically, that's not necessary for healing. It feels good temporarily, right? To kind of have those kind of rebound relationships or kind of back-to-back relationships because we feel wanted and our attachment system calms down for a little bit. However, we're not giving ourselves that time that we really, really do need to heal to be able to look at dating and relationships objectively. Thanks for hanging out with me in this conversation. I did not prep for this video beforehand or script or anything, outline this video. So if it's probably a little different than a lot of more of the polished content that I usually come out with. But I hope it was insightful. I hope it was eye-opening. I hope that you got something from it. This might not be all-inclusive. Definitely feel free that, depending if you kind of at a point, where you've kind of healed, put in the comments below on what were some of the things that you've had to let go of, right? Some of the things that you had to let go that you noticed were getting in the way of you really being able to fully let go and heal and move forward. I would be interested to hear other people's stories and journeys of things that worked and helped them. Again, this is kind of just general things, but, depending on the situation, there's always things, that can kind of maybe hinder our healing process that could be good for others to be aware of. So definitely feel free to share that down below. Thanks for watching this video. I hope it was insightful, and I will see you in the next one, and wishing you all peace and love and a wonderful day.